It is the FTN Fast Break Podcast, Thursday, January 2nd, 2025. What is going on, everybody? Zac Graham, aka Kawaisenberg, DFS, joined once again by my co host, Adam Pfeiffer, decked out with my favorite combo of Adam swag here with the Ducks hat, the Ken Griffey shirt. Adam, Happy New Year, man. How was it?
Happy New Year. Yeah, apparently I wore this for you.
Yeah.
But no, when you said the date, it took me back to like when I was in school and you would go back to school after New Year's and it took me a week to write the correct date at the top of my paper.
Right.
And
Every
that's
paper,
immediately
yeah,
what I
up in
just
the
thought
corner.
of. Yeah.
I think
Always.
this is I think this is the first time I have actually said a date or thought about a date. I didn't write anything down on my paper yesterday, So but yeah, man. And like speaking of turning to 2025, I would like a do-over on day one of the year from a props and DFS perspective, dude. Like Miles McBride was a late scratch on
Getting right
Wednesday
into
night.
it. Love it.
Dude, right into it. This is the fast break here. We're off and running. So Jalen Brunson was questionable coming into the day, then a game time decision, then ultimately ruled out. It was the first time this season he has missed a game. So us DFS players, right, we're chomping at the bit. It's Deuce McBride night. Super cheap on both sides. He's in every single one of my lineups, and I think a lot of other players did the same, as they should have. He's announced as a starter, both by beat reporters and then by the team. And then when they get to the actual starting lineups in Madison Square Garden, Cameron Payne is announced as the starting point guard. 10, 15 minutes later, news comes out Miles McBride suffered a hamstring injury in warm-ups. So, again, I would like a do-over. I do want to talk about some other Knicks stuff here, but I had to get that off my chest first. When you have a guy locked into all of your lineups, Adam, on the first day of the year, and he gets late scratched, it's just a tough way to start 2025.
Yeah, you definitely file that under things you don't like to see.
Yeah.
But ultimately, that team right now is rolling, so I'm sure they're not you know, obviously you want Brunson out there, but yeah, that's a tough pill for sure to start the year. And I saw it on Twitter too, and I was like, because it was obviously on New Year's Day, I guess
Yeah.
the evening,
Right.
and just it feels like that happens 5, 6 times every NBA season, and happen on the first day of the new year is a little bit worse, I guess.
Yeah. But I mean, like, look, you file that under things that you hate to see. When you open up that file cabinet for things you love to see, I think it is the New York Knicks in general, right? Winners of 9 straight now, just a half game back of the Boston Celtics for the 2 seed out east. And in that game last night against the Jazz, Josh Hart, first career back to back triple doubles, now has 10 triple doubles in his career, all of them with the New York Knicks. Karl Anthony Towns continues his romp through the Eastern Conference, 31 points, 21 rebounds against Utah. He is the first Knicks player with multiple 30-20 games in a season since Patrick Ewing did it in 1989-1990. Knicks 14-2 since November 29th, second best record in the league since that date, only behind Oklahoma City's 13-1, and that's 13-2 really for Oklahoma City with the tournament game loss in the final there. So the Knicks, man, like, it is all coming together, and of course they didn't need Brunson or Deuce to take care of the lowly Jazz last night, but they have kind of slowly but surely, I think, transformed into the team or progressed into the team that we all thought and hoped they could be, especially Knicks fans. They gotta be jazzed right now. How are you looking at the Knicks through this hot streak? And again, like, if you want to, Adam, we can also work in some Cavs talk because the Cavs have a 5-game buffer now in the East, and the Knicks are big time competition for your favorite team. So Knicks talk, Cavs, Celtics. Top of the East is really fun right now.
Yeah, the Brunson Cat duo offensively has actually probably been better than I even thought. They've pretty much been like top tier offense, but conversely, they've been still struggling defensively despite having those wings with OG and Bridges. I do think they are going to like from watching them, like there is plenty of moments where their offense just there's no movement. And that's part of it. Like Brunson last year, they were such a heliocentric offense in like the Luka style. And it's a little bit less so with Cat being there now because like, at this time last year it was, Mitchell Robinson and Hartenstein, guys you don't run your offense
Right.
through. But there will be some times where their offense is super stagnant, but that will be less worrisome because you have two of the 20 best offensive players in the league. And Bridges, too, has quietly been having a lot better production offensively. He had that huge game against, your San Antonio Spurs on Christmas. And I think they've gotten some really good minutes from Precious Achiuwa since he's been back, too, which has been important for them. So, yeah, for me, they've been really impressive. The defense is still something you have to worry about, but right now they clearly look like not only the clear third best team in the East, but a team that can, you know, clearly they're right behind Boston. I mean, what else say about the Cavs? They're like just dismantling teams at this point. Like we talked about this before we hopped on the podcast. You step away for 5 minutes and the Cavs are on an 18-2 run. And it's again, I talked about it last week when we did the All-Star reserves. Mobley deserves as much credit as anybody because his I mentioned how Bam for in Miami, right? Gets a defensive rebound, brings the ball up. We're seeing a lot more of that from Mobley.
Yeah.
He's attacking mismatches way more. And I think his first couple years in the league, like 75, like 70 plus percent of his baskets were assisted on, which makes sense. A lot of them dunks, lobs from Garland, Mitchell, etc. It's like it's like 10% lower this year, which tells me he's doing more offensively. He's got more, in his bag on offense. And then and we saw what Ty Jerome hasn't been as huge of the rotation lately as he was in the beginning of the season, but he's been consistent for them off the bench. They're just quietly like so deep. So I don't think anybody can believe it's we're at the point now where they're 29. They played 33 games. They've won 29 of them. Like I don't think you can say it's a fluke. And then Boston we know is going to be right there as well. The only thing I want to mention is will a team like Philadelphia get up there? Not to that level, but they're playing a
Right.
lot better lately. Finally seeing consistent games from their top three players. Still think they're missing somebody off that bench um, without McCain,
Hmm.
who was obviously starting and then he got hurt. But like they've been interested in Lonnie Walker. Could they bring in like somebody? But it's good to see them playing better. And the overall East is looking a lot better, especially once we get some sort of relevance for injuries in Orlando, because that top six, I think you could say, is still going to be really good. And then who knows where Jimmy Butler is going to be. So,
Yeah, I mean, and like the Magic are the 4 seed, about a 5 game gap between them and the Knicks and Celtics with the 2-3. But like to still be in the 4 seed now with Paolo Banchero's injury designation on the injury report changing from the oblique injury to return to play conditioning or return to competition, whatever they title it as. Like he is working his way back now. You would imagine Franz is a few weeks behind him. So like the fact that they have tread water this long, it's going to be a fun
and I'm
second
telling you,
half of the
like I
season.
talked about this a lot too. Like you don't like having Paolo and Franz out, but Jalen Suggs' confidence offensively during this stretch he's having some huge games, and when they're in the playoffs and all of a sudden they're struggling on offense, like Jalen Suggs is probably going to be a lot more comfortable, a lot more confident on offense. So, and then Goga's been quietly one of the best players, like not one of the best players, but like one of the most underrated good
Yeah.
players in the league this season. He's been awesome.
He's another big reason why they have been
Yep.
able to keep this above 500, right? I mean, 4-6 in their last 10, but it could be so much worse. Like what we did maybe envision when Franz went down and we were still missing Paolo without a return date, right? Like he could have seen them falling a lot further than they have. Um, and like, okay, I sit here and moan and complain about the DFS disappointments on Wednesday night, but like the actual disappointment around the NBA was the injury suffered by Jaden Ivey against those Magic on Wednesday night. He's chasing a loose ball, so's Cole Anthony, and Cole Anthony dives for the ball, hits Jaden Ivey in the leg. Ivey ends up being stretchered off the floor. last night I saw some Twitter doctors out there saying they thought it could be a fractured and or dislocated ankle, but then Shams gives us the actual report here on Thursday morning. It's a broken fibula. So I believe I saw that they said he will miss most of the rest of the regular season. I'm kind of surprised that we don't just have him ruled out for the rest of the year, because we're about 3 months and some change away from the end of the regular season. And again, you mentioned that Cavs record, right? We are rapidly approaching the halfway mark that we'll hit here in a couple weeks. So that was, I gotta tell you, man, I am like relatively squeamish when it comes to like catastrophic injuries. Seen a couple like in person in my real life of like leg bones pointing, like breaking out the skin, things like that. So I did not watch this until this morning. I thought it was going to be worse. That doesn't mean it's any better for Ivy, the Pistons, or anybody. And it wasn't just the Pistons who were shaken up about this. Like Cole Anthony himself, of course, there's fans out there saying he was being too reckless. And like I don't.
Jaden Ivey himself tweeted today or yesterday,
it was a basketball play.
Yeah, he said Cole Anthony. I think he said like he's a great kid. Don't like, which yeah, like it was awesome to see Jaden Ivey do that. But anybody that's why I feel so bad. Like C.J. Stroud when Tank Dell got hurt against the Chiefs, like he was again not his fault, nobody's fault, not the receiver's fault that ran into him. These things just unfortunately happen when you have collisions and stuff like that in sports. But my heart obviously goes out to the players that actually get hurt, but it also goes out to the players that have in some sort of way an impact on it, and it's it's nobody's fault. It's just these things happen, and it sucks because Jaden Ivey was with Cade Cunningham. Like they were making the Pistons really fun to watch. They weren't a contending team by any means, but they were a super fun team to watch this season. And obviously, like you just hope he's good to go for next season because his team's future is quietly getting a little bit brighter each year. And Ivy was as much of a part of that as anybody outside of maybe Cade.
I mean, these guys are right in the thick of the play-in right now, sitting in the 9 seed out east. And like with Cole Anthony, right? What was it? Reckless? Sure. Ill intent? No way.
Of course,
no way. So just kind of one of those things that happens sometimes when everybody's out there playing hard. We're diving after loose balls and the like. And I think from actually watching the replay now here this morning, because I didn't have eyes on the game. I heard about the injury, stretchered off. I didn't really want to see it at the time. But like, I think it could have been worse if his leg was planted and we could have had ligament damage. We could have had this and that. So I think like all things considered, it could have been worse. Like just watching the replay, not a doctor, but I've seen my fair share of injuries like that. The fact his leg wasn't planted feels a little bit fortunate.
Yeah. Just, hopefully he can get back, as quick as possible. And yeah, you just feel for him.
All right, like turning it back to a little bit of a positive here and moving to the West. The Denver Nuggets are heating up here, Adam. They have won 3 straight. They have vaulted themselves, as we know. Like if anybody, almost anybody in the West wins 3 in a row right now, you're gonna rocket up the standings. They are sitting in 4th at 19 and 13. Like I said, winners of 3 straight, 7 of their last 10. And you know who's been a huge catalyst? Like, of course, Nikola Jokic is the centerpiece of everything that this team does. But Russell Westbrook has moved into the starting lineup with Aaron Gordon out injured. And the Nuggets are now 9-2 on the season with Russ in the starting lineup and 11-2 when he plays 30 or more minutes. So, like, I think Russ is a talking point with the recent Nuggets success. And, like, he has built chemistry not only with Jokic, but members of the second unit. Now he's integrated into this starting group. And then, of course, Jokic himself. Like, we can't have the Nuggets conversation without talking about the most recent ridiculous record-breaking stat that Nikola Jokic set. Against the Hawks last night on Wednesday, he becomes the first player in NBA history to record 20 points, 15 boards, and 15 assists in less than 30 minutes. And courtesy of the Nuggets broadcast last night, Adam, 40% of his triple-doubles have come before the fourth quarter.
That's insane.
He's also still leading the league in 3-point percentage, 49.2%, 4.6 attempts per game. It's not like this guy is not shooting a high volume of threes, especially for him. I do think you look ahead at the schedule here. For the Nuggets, January as a whole, including last night's game, 17 games in 31 days. And a lot, like the schedule kind of ramps up now that we have passed NBA Christmas. We have passed the NBA Cup where we had a little bit more of a start and stop type of schedule for some of these teams. But in the remaining 16 games, this weekend, they play a back-to-back, home against the Spurs, road against the Spurs. As long as Victor Wembanyama plays in both of those games, those are tough. We saw the Spurs play them tough shorthanded last year when the Nuggets were fighting for the 1 seed. They also host Boston this month. They go twice on the road to Dallas, right? They're not going to have Luka there. Mavs are still playing tough. They host Houston. They go on the road to play the Timberwolves. They go on the road to play the Knicks. So I think January is a huge test. We're going to see how sustainable this iteration of the Nuggets are. And I don't know, man. I'm not going to bet against Jokic. So I'm throwing a lot at you there, spewing out Westbrook, Jokic, and Nuggets upcoming schedule. Where do you want to start? Because, again, this is fun to see, man. I like Russell Westbrook. Is he the best player at all times? No. But, I am enjoying seeing him kind of figuring things out alongside the best player in the world.
Yeah, and I think when Westbrook went to Denver, a lot of talk was like, how does he really fit with Jokic? It's kind of an awkward fit. And between that and Jamal Murray's kind of down season and the fact that, look, the dribble handoff pairing between Jokic and Jamal Murray just hasn't been the same this season, what's been the difference? And it's been, this team's playing fast. And it's weird because last year Denver was bottom 5 in pace. This year they're 5th in pace. They're averaging 7 more transition points per game this season. Christian Brown is top 5 in transition points per game. He's probably been their 3rd or 4th best player this season. And yes, Jokic is still dominating the league in touches per game, and his numbers each day is just like, what nonsense video game type shit is he going to post next? And I still remember back to the first episode we did this season when it was me and you. We were like, Russ has been terrible. His on-off splits are terrible. And that's clearly a thing of the past because he's been awesome. He is kind of fit with especially without Aaron Gordon, that kind of off-ball cutting presence. Defensively, he's still going to be really, really engaged and active. If he hits a 3 in a given game, just say thanks and move on. But the transition, I think, for Denver in terms of their pace of play and how they're getting out on the break has been a lot more fun to watch this season. And it's a good job by Michael Malone and the coaching staff and Jokic and everybody adjusting, because this is a team that they were towards the bottom of the league in pace for years with Jokic, and it makes sense because they play through him in the post and everything like that. But literally 7 more transition points per game, top 5 in pace after being bottom 5 last season, and of course the handful of seasons before that. So when your second best player is struggling like he is, you have to adjust. And I think Russ deserves a ton of credit for not just probably exceeding expectations, but playing as well as he has.
Yeah, and I think everything you said there, I second. You also do need to credit, like you suggested, you credit the coaching staff and what Michael Malone has done to make adjustments with the personnel shortcomings that he probably perceived at the beginning of the year. Losing Kentavious Caldwell-Pope was a big loss for this team. Aaron Gordon has been in and out of the lineup and is currently out for an extended period of time. So, you mentioned the pace, right? Nuggets are 3rd in points per game this season, and you look at the other teams up there in the top, 7 or 8 in terms of points per game, 117.6 allowed. That does stand out from Memphis, only 114. Cleveland, only 110. The point differentials for some of those other teams, Boston is up there as well. Those are the top 4. They stand out in a negative way there. So, I don't think we have Denver up in that top echelon of teams still. I think they are maybe a trade or two away.
I was going to say, we still believe they have to make a trade, right?
I do, yes. I do not think that this I'm never going to count Jokic out.
Right.
But, we saw this team be vulnerable last year, again, to a certain type of roster build with what the Wolves had last season.
Like, just for example, like they've played, obviously, I think of it vividly because it's my favorite team, but they've played twice against Cleveland this season. Jokic put up the same video game numbers, and the games weren't even really competitive.
Yeah.
Like those teams, like the Thunders, the Cavs, the Celtics of the world, like those teams in a 7-game series, like Jokic can do all he can, but like I just don't think they're at that same level. And does a Zach LaVine trade put them to that level? I don't think so, but they have to do something. Maybe it's not Zach LaVine. Maybe it's I don't know. Maybe it's Cam Johnson or somebody, but they have to do something.
I had that Cam Johnson trade to the Nuggets in that trade machine episode.
Can't be Dorian Finney-Smith now. He's not available anymore. So
absolutely.
Did you guys talk about that trade? You guys talked about that trade on Monday, right?
We talked about it on Monday. Did you have any additional thoughts?
No, I was just going to ask what you guys thought of it. I just think it's crazy, the D'Angelo Russell roller coaster.
Yeah, right back in Brooklyn here. I think for the Lakers, like, just to reiterate what Mike and I talked about on Monday, like, I think it is an upgrade. Does it really raise the Lakers up in my eyes in terms of their Western Conference contention? Not totally. But to bring Dorian Finney-Smith, who is shooting a career high from 3, bring him into this Lakers team without giving up one of their first-round picks, like, yeah. I do think it was a positive move in the right direction.
And Reeves has been balling since they traded Russell. Yeah. He's been insane.
Yes, he has. Yes, he has. So games coming up this weekend. Here on Thursday night, we've just got 6. And for me, the very clear game that will be on my television tonight is the Celtics at the Timberwolves. Celtics questionable Porzingis and Jaylen Brown coming into this one. I do think somebody sits. They will take on the Rockets tomorrow night, where Boston at Houston will also be on my TV screen on Friday. But I've got 2 games on Friday, additional games that I have my eyes on. First, I mentioned it earlier when we were talking about Denver's upcoming schedule. They host the Spurs. So Wemby and Jokic, and I would argue that those are the 2 best players in the league right now. That's must-watch TV for me.
I finally have an answer, by the way.
Okay, what's your answer?
I'm putting Shea second at this point.
Okay. Look, and that's totally fair. I am a little bit biased. Even I can admit that. But I think I could also make and win an argument to put Wemby over Shea. But this other game that's coming up, speaking of Shea, the Thunder host the Knicks. So we get Isaiah Hartenstein against his old team. So I am interested in that, outside of the fact that that should be a phenomenal game in the first place. So very excited for our Friday night slate on Saturday. I mentioned it's a back-to-back. So Jokic and Wemby part 2, this time in San Antonio. I will say, this is my stock down. I'll just do it early. Stock down to the league for the schedule congestion that we have. We're going to make these teams play, and I know it doesn't affect the Nuggets as much because their bodies are more acclimated to it, but we're going to make these guys play in Denver at elevation on Friday night and turn around 21 and a half hours later after that game, 20 and a half hours after that game concludes. These 2 teams tip off in San Antonio. It does not make sense to me, but that is the NBA. Then the game that I really want to watch outside of that on Saturday, Hawks at Clippers. My boy, Adam. Kawhi's debut. Look, I'm sure we get, 16 minutes out of him?
I was literally going to say over under 16 and a half minutes.
I will take the slight under there. But I am very excited to see if Kawhi is anywhere close to what we saw when he went out last season. Because again, the Clippers are a competitive team that is very much in the mix for a Western Conference playoff spot, and they have done that without their best player. Again, assuming he still is, I think he will be. We'll see Kawhi on Saturday, and then Sunday. Not a great slate of games, save for one. Why is this 2:30 Central on a Sunday, on Week 18 Sunday, Adam? Boston at OKC. Must watch.
Maybe they know that there's really only 4 NFL games that actually matter this week.
Yeah.
So look, I might watch that game instead of some football. Let's be honest. There's the Bills. Josh Allen's gonna take 2 snaps and continue his consecutive game streak, right. And then he and the starters are coming out. I don't really have to watch the Bills. Fantasy football season is over unless you are an absolute psycho playing in Week 18 for the championship. Yeah, I mean Boston OKC. I'll probably try to watch that.
All right, well, I gave you my stock down there, making the Nuggets and Spurs play less than 24 hours apart, multiple states apart. So, what's your stock down here on episode 34?
Yeah, so haven't been able to watch a ton of this team, but I was able to because they were playing Philadelphia on Monday, and I'm in the PA area, so they were obviously on TV. Portland, Scoot Henderson is not very good. I just it's really unfortunate, but I'm watching that game and he has like a possession, like 6 possessions in a row where he has like 4 turnovers in that span. He is shooting under 40% from the field. He's just like on a team that's as bad as Portland, and let's be like they don't have bad players, like they have a bad roster, but like he's like maybe their 5th best player. It's like Ayton, Denny, Simons, Jeremy Grant when healthy, and I like Tamani Kamara. Scoot Henderson should not be your 5th best player with the hype he had coming out and everything like that. Just watching him, it's like he just doesn't look good. And obviously like and I didn't even mention Shane Sharp. So what is he like their 6th best player?
If that, I would say seventh.
So Grant when healthy, Ayton, Simons, that's 3. Kamara, Sharp is 5. Denny's 6.
Yeah. And like, again, like, would I take Scoot over some of those guys
For the
long
future,
haul
right?
Because he's 20 and I think he can still.
And
get
maybe
better.
I'm being too harsh, and I hope this is
I
just
don't
like
think you are though. I don't think you are if you're looking at it in the prism of like right now.
Mhm.
He's not a good player,
Right.
and it's just weird. Like again, we were talking before we hit record here. Is like if we're trying to win a game today, are you taking Scoot Henderson or Tumani freaking Kamara, man, who was a 2nd-round pick, right, in that same draft?
It's not even close.
It's not close, and it's one of my like again like I know I'm not alone here, and I know Mike Randall was on Scoot over Brandon Miller with me before that draft, but like I admitted I was wrong at the end of last season, and Scoot has done really nothing to change my mood on that. It's unfortunate, man, because I was very excited for him coming out of the G League Ignite 2 years ago. Anything else for you on that? Because I'm excited for our stock ups here, dude. You started this. You started this.
No, it's just been disappointing. And again, he's only 20, so let's hope this is just a stretch where he's struggling, and maybe a year from now we're looking at him maybe close to how we view Brandon Miller. I don't know if it'll get to that point, but still obviously incredibly young. So hopefully he bounces back. But it's been really bad, and I really the first time I got to sit down to watch a full game of Portland, and just came away really disappointed.
All right, closing out episode 34 with our stock ups, and warning, double Spurs stock up here. So
That's my fault
Adam
too.
Start.
It's my fault.
Yeah. So what's your Spurs stock up here on episode 34?
Yeah, Victor Wembanyama for nothing he did on the court. Tweets last week that he's going to play chess. Was it Washington Square? Washington.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Hey, I'm going to play chess. Anybody want to come up and meet?" Terrible weather. It's like raining. It's like 35 degrees, and he's out there playing chess with fans. And I thought that was awesome. Just putting it out there and going to play some chess. I wonder if he won those games. I'm sure he did. I used to play chess all the time. Chess is actually insanely fun, and it's like super cool to have the strategic mindset, and it's just like you're so hyper focused on everything. But that was dope to see. So Wemby stock up, going to play some chess with the fans on a cold and rainy day.
Yeah, I believe it was a 1-2 record. I think he said he played his brother and won, and then he played 2 like pros who hang out in the park there and lost both of those.
Oh, he's playing pros.
Yeah, I think. But yeah, I agree. That was pretty cool to see. And he did say after, I believe, that he wants to have like an NBA players chess tournament, and like, not to be insensitive here or anything, but what's the roster for that chess tournament? 7 players or something like that. I'm not giving the guys enough credit. I'm sure there's plenty of chess players around the association, but my stock up here on our very Spurs edition of Stock Up, Stock Down, my stock up is to Spurs general manager Brian right, because I could obviously go on for a lot longer about all of the moves he's made leading up to them tanking for Wemby and what he's done after. And I actually want to focus on what he's done after, in particular this past offseason. We knew that on paper, getting Chris Paul, getting Harrison Barnes in here as some veteran leadership for what was the second youngest, or actually by the end of last season, I believe the youngest team in the NBA. This team is over 500, Adam, at New Year's Day for the first time since 2019. And Chris Paul has assisted Victor Wembanyama 79 times, which is the second most in the NBA. Do you, off the top of your head, know who the top pairing is? It is a pairing that you have talked about multiple times on this podcast this season.
It's Harden and Zubac.
I believe it's Trae Young and Jalen Johnson.
It was Harden and Zubac, I think.
Yeah, they may be third. But yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting considering
that was gonna be my. I knew it was those two. I just didn't know if it was switched, because I'm pretty sure at one point it was definitely Harden and Zubac number one.
I think I remember you bringing that up at the beginning of the season when we were talking about the Clippers' early season success. But so then, like, you break those numbers down even further. Chris Paul has assisted 41 times to Wembanyama for 3, which is the most in the NBA, and for 199 total points. That is also first in the NBA.
And then for 7 million miles of distance, too, apparently.
Yeah,
for each three.
Yeah, and then Harrison Barnes, career high 42.5% from 3. So shout out, stock up, Brian Wright. And man, does like.
I was going to ask you, is Harrison
kind of important to this team right now?
I was going to ask, is Harrison Barnes a member of the Spurs by the deadline?
I do think it's more likely that he would move than Chris Paul.
Yeah.
Because I
think Chris Paul likes it there. I think he's having fun. To an extent, like without winning. Let's
go a little bit more. Let's dive just one circle deeper into Spurs hell for you here. What do you think it's a non-zero chance that Chris Paul could end up joining the Spurs coaching staff? Because I think it's a non-zero chance. Maybe even being the head coach.
Head coach would be wild.
I know, but like, I don't know, man. Like, they really tried to get Duncan in there to do something like that, and he balked at it. And again, I don't think I've seen or heard any indication from Chris Paul that he wants to be an NBA head coach, but like, I just know that obviously I try to ingest all the Spurs content I can. And Pop, over the years, has spoken so highly of Chris Paul and the way he thinks the game and the way he leads a team and executes on the floor. I just kind of had that thought pop into my head over the last week or so, is like, could he join the coaching staff? Because they've had players of lesser stature in the past. A Gorgie Jang, right? Ime Udoka got his coaching start with the Spurs. I could name some other names too, and we're talking too much about the Spurs here, but I had that thought, and I think it's interesting. Like, he would have to move his family to Texas. Like, there are hurdles to that, outside of him, his desire being number one, but something I was thinking about.
That'd be fun.
Yeah.
I'm sure whenever the time is that Pop is done, I'm sure he would try to see if that'd be something he'd be interested in.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how it plays out. Stock up, Wemby playing chess. Stock up, Brian Wright. Got the Spurs over 500 for the first time in 5 years. Anything else for you, Adam, on episode 34 before we shut it down?
I don't think so. No Thursday night football tonight. So
yeah.
Just,
how you feeling though? Like, I know you're excited to get you can kind of fully get into basketball. You got a Bills playoff run coming up, but like, we're also we're at the end, right? Like, no more season long, no more huge DFS slates. Like, how are you feeling about this time of year?
I'm actually kind of excited because I do want to right now I'm at the point now where I can finally, for the most part, just focus on the Bills and the Bills alone football. Obviously, I'm still doing some football content as well, but like, I don't have to worry about as much, the fourth string wide receiver against, this team's slot defensive back and this team's pressure rate. And, so it's fun in that aspect to be able to also shift more towards basketball. And from just a straight up fan perspective, I should be excited for the Cavs and the Bills. The PTSD starting to sit in, man. We're getting to the playoffs, and
I get it.
but The Bills have 17, so I think they can beat anybody. As long as they have 17, they can beat anybody.
Look, man, Josh Allen for MVP. I'm with it.
He's gonna win.
I'm with it.
I think he's still like the massive betting favorite. So
sure.
He's not gonna play like obviously this week,
right.
He's insane.
Yeah.
And people ask me all the time, like a lot of my friends, like, why do you care about the MVP so much? It's more about the fact that you guys don't understand how long I have been waiting for a quarterback to just be good on the Bills,
right?
Let alone a superstar, and now we have a chance to have somebody that's going to win the MVP. Like that means a lot to me. Like I was hyped when Josh Allen was on the cover of Madden, so of course I wanted to win the MVP award.
Yeah.
When you like I care about the Bills outside of family and friends more than almost anything in my life. So like it's super important to me, and it's more of like a finish line of like where I've been waiting for the next, because I wasn't old enough really to watch Jim Kelly, so it's like this is the dude for me.
Yeah, man.
He's finally here. We finally have the quarterback.
Hey, I feel you, dude. You know, it took a long time for my favorite team to draft a generational player like Victor Wembanyama. Like I had to wait a whole 5 years of losing.
Listen, I was in stream when it happened, and I
know
so happy. It was so fun. I fear for the dog though, because the dog probably had no clue what was going on, and you were just going crazy.
Well, yeah, he's a crazy dog himself, that Wimby. All right, everybody, we're rambling here. It's been a while since Adam and I sat down and talked. About a week since we talked. So always enjoy seeing you, my friend. Appreciate everybody tuning in, sticking with us here on episode 34 of the FTN Fast Break podcast. I am back on Monday with Mike Randall, breaking down the weekend that was in the basketball universe. On your way out, subscribe to the channel, or if you're listening on audio, rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Enjoy your weekend, everybody. Hope you had a happy new year. We'll see you back here on Monday for another episode of the Fast Break. Till then, he's Adam, and I'm Zach. Goodbye.